some started out testimony about the Schneider too. The whole and then would you state your name, spelling your last name, please?
Dennis Murphy, Murphy.
You are a detective with the City of Milwaukee Police Department?
Yes, I am.
For what period of time have you been a member of the Milwaukee Police Department?
24 years.
And for what period of time have you been a detective with the Milwaukee Police Department?
13 years.
As such, were you working as a Milwaukee police officer on July the 23rd, 1991?
Yes, I was.
What time did you report to duty on that date?
I was called in at 3 a.m.
And that would have been, as it turned out, a couple hours after Mr. Dahmer was taken into custody.
That's correct.
You have occasion that morning to be assigned to do anything relative to Mr. Dahmer as far as official police work was concerned?
Yes, I was informed of a possible multiple homicide and was informed to interview Mr. Dahmer with Detective Kennedy throughout the day and numerous other days.
Now, the Jeffrey Dahmer is the gentleman that I'm pointing to in the middle of the table where I'm standing.
That's correct.
And that's the person you were talking to on multiple occasions.
Yes, it is.
Okay, now, Detective Kennedy has just testified to a confession that he took from Mr. Dahmer prior to your coming into the picture. That has been testified to by him, and then it's alleged that he then went and got you, and then the two of you started working as a team. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Now, how many hours from the time that you first saw Mr. Dahmer until the last time you talked with him did you spend talking to him about his conduct in reference to these homicides?
Approximately 60 hours.
16?
60.
60, yes. You were also present when he was talked to by police representatives of the Bath, Ohio Police Department?
That's correct.
And you were also present when he was talked to by police officers of the West Dallas Police Department?
Yes.
And the reason for that is those crimes, some of these crimes happened, one in Bath, Ohio, and some in West Dallas.
That's correct.
But you were present.
Yes.
So you know what he said relative to those things, to those law enforcement people.
Yes.
During the break with counsel for the state, we went over the confession, and we have extracted the part that is reference to Milwaukee. We will talk later about what was said as it relates to Bath, Ohio, and as to West Dallas, correct?
Yes.
So anything that we're going to talk about here has been, in effect, the confession you and Detective Murphy took.
Detective Kennedy.
Detective Kennedy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Detective Murphy, tell us, when you first saw Jeffrey Dahmer, what was his demeanor?
He was, I was introduced to him by Detective Kennedy. He was sitting in room 411.
Speak up a little bit, I can't hear you.
I was introduced to him by Detective Kennedy. He was sitting in room 411.
That's of the Police Administration Building?
Criminal Investigation Bureau, which is called the CIB.
It's an interrogation room?
Yes.
Go ahead.
He had a cup of coffee, cigarettes. He was calm, talked in a monotone voice. He appeared alert. We understood what we were talking to him about. He responded to our questions.
He's cooperative?
Cooperative, yes.
Was he abrasive?
No.
Well, how would you describe that part of his demeanor? Was he gentle?
He was quiet.
As far as his, as the concept of his depression, did you see any depression?
No, he reminded me of like someone who got caught doing something wrong, and he was a little bit embarrassed about it, but yet he responded to our questions.
Okay, so he was totally cooperative.
Yes, he was.
Was there ever a time in the 60 hours that you were with him when he wasn't cooperative?
No, there was not.
He was always cooperative.
Yes.
The time that you first met him, that morning on the 23rd day of July, 1991, were you aware of any homicides where Jeffrey Dahmer was the suspect in them?
I was informed of what he had told Detective Kennedy prior to my entering the room. But as far as any identification of anyone, I was not.
Okay. Now, he, in the final analysis, told you about his commission of how many homicides in Milwaukee County?
15, well, he mentioned 16 homicides, one of which he did not know whether he killed the individual, and one in Bath, Ohio.
And the one that he didn't know if he killed the individual is the one that's been known as the ambassador.
That's correct.
Now, what I'd like you to do is to tell us, after you started talking to Mr. Dahmer, and I would like you to go through your notes, you typed up your notes in the form of a formal confession, just as Detective Kennedy has just testified about that portion that he took alone, right?
Yes.
Right, do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Right, that has now been received in evidence as an exhibit number 1, and it's understood that it will only be received in the final analysis after extraneous parts are removed. So since I have the same thing that you have, if you will tell us, are you going to start on page 14?
Yes.
Okay, would you start reading this confession? And if for any reason you want to take a break, let us know. But we'll go back and forth if we will. So tell us what time it was that you first started talking to Mr. Dahmer, and what, if anything, you said to him and what he said to you.
Well, at 5 a.m., I entered the interview room and was introduced to Mr. Dahmer, at which time I told him I had to advise him of his Miranda right. And he stated, yeah, I didn't have to, Pat had already told him.
He told you that?
He told me that. I said, well, I still have to advise you, so I advised him of his Miranda rights.
Tell us what you told him.
I read him from my calendar.
Please read it.
Okay. You have the right to remain silent. I asked him if he understood that. He stated he did. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. I asked him if he understood that. He stated yes. I continued, you have the right to consult with a lawyer before questioning and to have a lawyer present during questioning. I asked him if he understood that. He stated he did. I continued, if you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you at public expense before or during any questioning if you so wish. I asked him if he understood that. He stated he did. I continued, if you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop questioning and remain silent at any time you wish, and the right to ask for and have a lawyer at any time you wish, including during the questioning. I asked him if he understood that. He stated yes. Then I continued, do you understand each and every one of these rights that I have just explained to you? And having these rights in mind, do you wish to speak to us? And he stated he did, at which time Detective Kennedy went through the oral confession he had gotten. He transcribed it onto the show-up report. And when we finished the statement, we continued to talk to Mr. Dahmer.
Did Mr. Dahmer sign that which Detective Kennedy had written up and read?
Yes, he
Mr.
did.
Dahmer in your presence, and he signed each page?
Mr. Dahmer signed it, Detective Kennedy signed it, and I signed it.
Okay, and then that was later typed up, and that's what Detective Kennedy read here today.
That's correct.
Okay, now, would you tell us, was he alert? Was he awake? Did he appear to be tired? Anything of that nature?
No, he was alert, awake.
Did he make any requests for coffee, cigarettes, or whatever?
Coffee, cream, and sugar, cigarette, soda, go to the bathroom.
They were made of there.
Yes,
In no time did he have any complaints at all, correct?
none.
Not even in any of the 60 hours you were with it, correct?
None that I know of.
Now tell us the next thing that you did relative to taking a further statement from Mr. Dahmer, with the understanding that things that are not important, such as telephone numbers and places where people work, that are insignificant or not relevant, tell us, leave those out and just continue to tell us what he told us.
Okay, we talked to Mr. Dahmer regarding his family. He informed us that his mother and father were divorced. His mother is presently living in Northern California somewhere, and his father is living in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Informed us where he worked. He stated that he also has a brother in Cincinnati. Jeffrey states that he hadn't seen his parents for quite some time, and he believes the last time he saw his father was in 1979. 79.
Okay.
He also stated that he had a brother in Cincinnati, but he hadn't seen him in a while. We then questioned him regarding the address at the time of the homicides, which occurred in Bath, Ohio, when he was 18 years old. He stated his hometown was Bath, Ohio. And when he was there, he picked up a hitchhiker in Bath, Ohio, across from the fire station, and took him to his house. on West Bath Road. He stated they had sex, got into an argument, and he killed the individual by hitting him with a barbell. He stated after this occurred, he cut him up, put him in garbage bags, and threw the bags in the woods behind the house, to the west of it. He left him there for about 2 weeks. He stated after 2 weeks, he went to the woods with a sledgehammer, broke up the bones in little pieces, and scattered them about the woods. Stated after this, he joined the Army in 1979. He subsequently was discharged in March of 81. And after he was discharged, he lived in Miami, Florida for approximately 1 year. He moved back to Bath, Ohio for 4 months, and then about June or July of 1982, he moved to his grandmother's house in West Allis on South 57th Street. He stated that from the first homicide through all of this time, he was not involved in any other homicides.
Does that mean that the only homicides he was involved in is the ones he's admitted to?
That meant just the one he admitted to in Bath, Ohio.
Okay.
We questioned him regarding any activities as to why he kept some of the body parts of the victims that were discovered on 25th Street, or whether or not he consumed any body parts. And he stated the only time he ever did consume any body parts was one time, and that was a bicep, at which time he pointed to his right bicep of a black male that he met on 27th in Wisconsin.
Now, let me just stop you there so I can understand what he meant by saying that he moved from Bath, Ohio in June or July of 82. He moved in with his grandmother, and that from the first homicide through all of this time, he was not involved in any other homicides. You mean the one in Bath, Ohio, and then his first one in Milwaukee that happened at the Bath?
Right.
Okay.
He stated the reason that he consumed the bicep is because it was big and he wanted to try it. He then stated he didn't want to talk about it anymore. He also stated that he would masturbate in front of the body parts and the skulls that he would collect because it brought back memories of the victims. He said he would put these body parts in formaldehyde and he would boil the skulls to get rid of the skin. He had also spray painted several of the skulls. This will be reflected in separate reports.
So what you're doing in that is saying that there's another report that goes into that?
Yes, several.
Okay, go ahead.
He stated that all the victims he killed, which he believed to be in the vicinity of 15, he did not keep 3 of the skulls. He stated one of the skulls was from the victim in Ohio, and there were 2 others of black males.
That he did not keep.
Correct. He stated he put these 2 skulls in acid and got rid of them that way. He stated the total length of time that this occurred was about 6 years, he believed. He stated the type of pills that he used to put the victims to sleep prior to him strangling them are sleeping pills which he had obtained from a Dr. Hong, who's H-O-N-G. He stated the reason that he killed these homosexuals, and he stated they all were homosexuals, was because he wanted to be with them. He stated he kept the skulls of the good-looking ones because he didn't want to lose them. He also stated that he felt he could hang on to them if he could in fact kill them and keep their skulls. He stated that the last 3 skulls that were in the refrigerator and not boiled belonged to his last 3 victims. This time, Mr. Dahmer stated that he was tired, he wanted to get some rest, and he was taken to the city jail.
Now, at this moment, can you tell us what his demeanor was? Was he crying?
No.
Just telling you as a matter of course.
That's right.
Was he shaken?
No.
What was his state of what was it relative to his drinking? Had he appeared to you that he had been drinking?
No, I was informed that he had been drinking when I had come in, that he had drank prior to his arrest, but he appeared to be sober to me. Okay. Did you have occasion then to talk to him later? Another statement was taken on the same day, on the 23rd.
What time?
Between the time that we finished with the written statement and the time he was taken to the city jail.
Okay, there's a time when he tells you, I'm tired, I want to get some rest.
Right.
And you see that that's taken care of. What time is that at?
I believe that was around 12:15.
Around afternoon hour, you mean?
Yes.
So he leaves your presence.
No, excuse me, that was about 10:30.
10:30. So
Right.
he leaves your presence. And where do you have him in? What kind of a holding place?
He was taken up to the city jail, and we informed them of the charges against him and that we wanted a 24-hour guard on him, at which time he was placed in a cell alone away from all prisoners, and they watched him.
This time, did you know the identity of any person he had killed?
After his initial statement, he admitted to 12 homicides, and he stated he had identification of some of the victims in the apartment and on his person, at which time we knew a couple names, but that was about it.
But that's with his assistance you started being able to identify the victims.
That's it, yes, sir.
Okay, now he leaves you, you take him upstairs, and then there's contact again between you and he and Detective Kennedy. How much longer after he goes upstairs at 10:30?
I believe it was 12:15 or 12:30 he called for us.
A couple hours later?
12:45, yes.
A couple hours later?
Correct.
He calls for you. Tell us how that happened.
Well, we had informed him. He stated he wanted to cooperate. We said, if you recall anything that we have not discussed, all you have to do is give us a call. If you want to talk about it, we'll be glad to talk to you. He was taken to the cell. We went about doing our work and doing our reports, at which time we received a call from the jail indicating that he wished to speak to us.
And you took advantage of that request and you went upstairs to talk to him.
That's correct.
So what happened then? Tell us where that conversation took place and what happened as a result of that.
We went up to the jail, took him from the jail, took him back down to the Criminal Investigation Bureau in the same room, 411, and we interviewed him regarding the information that he had for us. The interview began approximately 1:15 p.m.
Did you ask him whether or not he had gotten any rest?
Yeah.
What did he tell you?
Said that he couldn't sleep.
And his demeanor was pretty much the same as you had described it before?
Yes.
And you gave him whatever he asked for?
Coffee, cigarettes.
Okay. So what tell us about that statement now? By the way, Mr. McCann in his opening statement does not name the kind of drug. If the name of the drug is mentioned, I ask that you don't mention the name.
Okay.
Okay? Please continue.
We again advised Mr. Dahmer of his Miranda rights,
Same rights.
same rights,
He wanted to talk.
and we told him that he did not have to speak to us, and he stated he understood these rights, and he stated, "I've told you everything already. I have nothing to hide, so I might as well tell you about the ones I forgot." Then he went on to tell us about other victims.
Tell us what was said.
He stated there was one more Hispanic male that he met in Chicago about 2 weeks ago, just after the 4th of July. He stated this Hispanic male was about 25 years old, and he met him at Carol's, which is a gay bar on Wells Street in Chicago, Illinois. He stated he and this Hispanic male then took a Greyhound bus back to Milwaukee, and the Hispanic male stayed for 2 days in his apartment. He stated he does not recall his name. He thought it might be Tony, but he is not sure. He stated after the first day, they had oral sex with each other and got along together. On the second day, the Hispanic male stated he was going to be leaving, at which time the defendant stated he did not want him to leave, so he gave him sleeping pills and coffee in order to keep him there. Stated after he passed out, he then strangled the Hispanic male and dismembered him and put his head in the refrigerator. He stated he did not boil the head, and when he would boil heads, he would use Soilex to boil the heads. He stated he also purchased a 57-gallon drum in which he put the torsos of 3 of his victims.
Was that drum found in his apartment?
Yes, there was.
And there were remains, human remains in it?
Yes, there were.
Were they identifiable human remains?
Yes, there were.
Go ahead.
He stated he even spray painted some of the skulls with spray paint where he looked artificial. Mr. Dahmer stated he purchased a spray paint from an art shop on Water Street.
Did he tell you why he did that?
Just to make them look artificial so no one would realize they were the real skulls.
Did you make note of that as his reason for doing that?
That in another statement.
Okay. Continue on, please.
I then questioned him regarding the torsos in the 57-gallon tank. And he stated one is that of the Hispanic male from Carol's bar, One was from the black male on 27th Street. And the third one was from the black male he met at the bus station in Chicago. I informed him that there was a skeleton recovered in his apartment, and he stated that was from the black male he met in front of the bookstore approximately 1 year ago. Mr. Dahmer further stated that he would cut off the penis and body parts, put them in formaldehyde to preserve them, and then look at them and masturbate for gratification. He further stated that he had experimented with ether to put people asleep, but it didn't work.
Why did he tell you he experimented with ether?
Because sometimes he wouldn't have sleeping pills, so we'd try ether, and that it was cheaper, but it didn't work.
Okay, continue on.
Regarding the other 6 torsos that apparently are missing and cannot be accounted for the amount of heads that had been discovered in the apartment, he stated that these torsos were placed in acid and were eaten away and then flushed down the toilet when they became slushy. Mr. Dahmer then stated he remembers another victim. And this homicide occurred about 5 months ago. It was a black male about 20 years old who he met on 27th in Wisconsin. He stated he got this individual to pose for him, gave him a drink, and then cut off his skin. He eventually put the skin in acid. He stated he skinned the entire body, then boiled the head of this individual, and subsequently disposed of the body in plastic bags after dismembering it. He stated that when he would strangle this victim, he would use his hands, and about 4 times he used a black leather-type strap. He had bought this strap for this specific purpose.
Did you then go into a different subject matter with him?
Yes.
What about?
Regarding his activities upon joining the Army,
Go ahead.
he stated he joined the Army in 1979 and was discharged in March of 81. He was stationed in Wallholz, Germany. He stated that after he went to Florida for a year, returned to Bath, Ohio in March of 82, stayed for 4 months, and then returned to the residence of his grandmother on South 57th Street. He originally stated that the killings started in 84 again, but to the best of his recollections, he believed these killings started in 87.
So he's telling you that after having time to think about it, his better recollection was they started in 87 and not in 84.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Dahmer stated that this was all he could remember at this time, and if he does recall any further information, he'll contact either myself or Detective Kennedy. It's either the only homicides he can recall that he was involved in at this time.
So he said in closing that he would contact you people.
Yes.
You didn't ask him to do that. He volunteered to do it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
While questioning Mr. Dahmer regarding the sledgehammer he used to break up the bones of his victims while he was living at his grandmother's house, he stated that it was kept in the garage and it had a gray handle. I subsequently informed another Detective Farmer who was at the grandmother's house to check for this sledgehammer. He did recover it. He returned it to the Criminal Investigation Bureau where it was shown to Mr. Dahmer. And upon viewing it, he stated that that was the one he used on his victims on South 57th Street.
Did that end that period of questioning?
No, there was another report taken.
Another what?
Another statement taken from Mr. Dahmer during this time also.
Okay, at what time was that? During the same time that you're talking about now at the 12:45 session?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
After we escorted Mr. Dahmer down to the interview room and during the investigation, he stated, and after he told us he wanted to talk to us about the 2 additional homicides that he forgot to mention originally. After telling us about these homicides, we questioned him regarding the substance that was sprayed on some of the skulls that we found in his apartment, because the medical examiner had informed us that there appeared to be spray paint substance on 3 skulls. Mr. Dahmer stated that he had gone to the Pallet Shop, which is an art store located on South Water Street. He stated that at the store he purchased some enamel spray paint, type of coloring being a fake granite. He was asked why he used the spray paint on the skulls, and he stated he sprayed them in order to give them an artificial look in case someone would see them, they would feel they were not real. When asking him which skulls he sprayed, he stated the black male, which he met on 27th Street, was one of the skulls. The mixed mulatto, which he met at the Lacage on West National, was the second skull sprayed, and the black male prostitute, which he picked up in front of 219 South 2nd Street, was the third skull sprayed. This time we questioned Mr. Dahmer regarding numerous boxes of Soilex, which is a cleaning powder that was found in his apartment, and he stated that he used the Soilex along with a water solution to boil the heads, which he had decapitated from his victims. He stated the Soilex effectively boiled off the skin and hair from the skull in about 1 hour. He also stated that one of the torsos that he had taken from the victim, he had also boiled in a large kettle, which he kept and boiled in Soilex. This time his question regarding the homicide of a...
Well, the next part has to do with a matter that is not relevant to these proceedings.
That's correct.
Now, is that pretty much the sum and substance of the second interview?
No, he was asked one more question regarding...
Please tell us.
He was asked... His question regarding the numerous types of ether that were found in his apartment. And he stated he bought the ether in an attempt to use it on some of the victims after he had drugged them, in an attempt to keep them in a sleep-like state longer. However, he stated the ether did not work very well and it only made them slightly intoxicated or high, so he didn't use it.
Now, did you then let him go back into his cell?
That's correct. He was returned to his cell.
And that was still...
We're in between statements.
I beg your pardon, Your Honor?
We're in between statements. We've been going for not quite an hour.
Good.
So
It'd be nice to... Fine.
about 15 minutes in duration. Question recess. All right, please. Take it, please. Boyle, you may continue.
Okay. I believe that we have concluded talking about any statements that were made on the day of his arrest, the 23rd.
That's correct.
Did you have contact with him on the next day?
Yes, I did.
And how did that contact come along?
At approximately 8:30, we received a call from the jail that Mr. Dahmer requested to speak with us again.
8:30 in the morning.
8:30 a.m., yes.
So in other words, he was out of your presence in the afternoon of the 23rd, and the next time he heard that he wanted to talk to you was the next morning at 8:30.
That's correct.
You did not try and initiate, or anyone else in your department, any conversations with him in the interim, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so tell us what happened.
After we received the information that he wanted to speak with us, we again went up, removed him from the cell, brought him down to the CIB, and this time we went to 407. He was again advised that he didn't have to speak to us, advised of his rights. He said he understood those, and we questioned him regarding his early life in Ohio.
Who brought that up? You or him?
It was brought up during the discussion by either ourselves or him. We wanted to get some more background information, so we brought it up.
Tell us what he said.
He remembered his early family life as being one of extreme tension. States the tension came from the relationship that existed between his mother and his father. He said he was not physically abused or sexually abused, and he did not witness any physical abuse from his parents. He stated that they were constantly at each other's throat and arguing. He stated his mother appeared to have some psychiatric problems and, in fact, had suffered a nervous breakdown at one time during his early childhood. He stated that she was on medication, had been seeing a doctor for much of the time. He states that he was advised by relatives that his mother had suffered a postpartum depression after he was born. And he took that to indicate that he was at least partially the problem or his parents' bad marital status. He stated he believed his mother became depressed after his birth and never quite fully recovered, and therefore he felt a certain amount of guilt in regards to the bad marriage of his parents.
Now, this is information that generally you might want to know about somebody, especially somebody who's committed these kinds of crimes, correct?
That's correct.
So it wasn't something he was volunteering to make excuses, was it?
No, we requested this.
Fine, continue.
He stated that when he was 18 years old, and the divorce occurred between his mother and father. This time his mother moved to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and his father had been on court order to stay out of the house, and he had moved into a motel several miles from his house.
His father had?
Yes.
Okay.
Said at the time his mother took his younger brother, who was approximately 6 years younger than him, and she moved out and left him alone in the house. He said at this time, he started having strong feelings about being left all alone. And it was at this time he remembered having strong desires for not wanting to have people leave him. He stated that at this time he began hating to sleep alone at night. He further indicates that it was about this time in his life that he became familiar with alcohol, and he immediately became a heavy drinker and abused alcohol on a regular basis. He then went into the Army, and he indicates that the alcohol intake increased, and he was actually released 6 months early from the Army because of the alcohol abuse. He states while in the Army, he was a field medic. He then stated that he began having fantasies of killing people at an early age, about 17 or 18. He states although these fantasies were fleeting, he feels that he had the fantasies to overcome the feelings that he had frustration and emptiness which he felt were in his life. He states after he moved to Milwaukee in '81, the fantasies of killing people began to excite him and become more frequent. Regarding his victims, he stated he received physical pleasure from being with the victims when they were alive, and he would have preferred that the victims remained alive. However, he states that it was better to have them dead than to have them leave. He states that when he felt they were to leave, that is when he would decide to kill them. Regarding the fact that he stated that he had in fact eaten parts of one of the victims, he states that he feels that by eating parts of the victims, it was his way of keeping them with him even longer and making the victims a part of him.
And now that pretty much concluded that interview.
Well, there was other reports, other interviews at the same time.
Okay, but let me just stop at that time. This was normal police practice where you and your partner sit down and you raise certain subject matters. He answers the questions, correct?
That's correct.
He wasn't volunteering this where you were just writing down. He was responding to your question.
Right, we would answer questions.
Okay, and so you kind of developed the area of inquiry rather than him volunteering the answer.
That's correct.
Now, did he ever tell you that he had heard voices or that he was hallucinating or the devil made him do it? Did he ever go into that with you?
No.
Never laid the blame on anyone, did he?
No.
Okay, go ahead and tell us the next time and the circumstances of your talking to Mr. Dahmer.
We asked Mr. Dahmer additional questions regarding the first homicide that occurred in Bath, Ohio. And he stated that, and prior to that, he had just started drinking when he was 17. He stated that his friends were straight that he knew of, and they all smoked marijuana in high school. States he did not know any friends that were gay, but he himself had homosexual tendencies and had never gone out with a girl or had sex with any female. He states his first homicide occurred around October of '78 when he saw a white male hitchhiker whom he describes as 18, 5'10", tall, skinny build, maybe 150 pounds, having straight brown collar-length hair, not wearing glasses, clean-shaven, and he believed he was not a homosexual. He stated he didn't have sex with this individual, he just invited him in for a drink. And when the individual wanted to leave, that's when he hit him with the barbell. And subsequently disposed of the body behind the residence. He stated he did burn his clothes and identification at that time.
Did he tell you who the man was? Did he know his name?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. I mean, at the time he was talking to you, did you ask him if he knew who it was?
Yes.
What did he say?
Didn't know. He just
Go ahead.
gave us his physical description.
Okay, go ahead.
He again went through the various places that he lived after joining the Army and being discharged in March of 1981, where he was a field medic. He had moved to Miami and left in about October of '81, went back to Bath, Ohio, lived there until December of '81 or January of '82, where he moved to Milwaukee with his grandmother in December of '81 or January of '82, and stayed there until '88 when he moved to 808 North 24th Street. He remained there for 6 months to a year and then moved to his present address at 924 North 25th Street. He again states that there were no homicides from the '78 homicide until the one that occurred at the Ambassador Hotel, at which time he thought it was 1984. He stated that he died at the hotel and he then took him to his grandmother's residence where he dismembered the body and disposed of the parts.
Now, and sometime earlier, he had told you and your partner that the first murder after the one in Bath, Ohio, was in 84, and then he changed to 87. Is he now back to 84 again?
Well, he was, yeah, the 87 came out later on in the interview.
Okay, so 84, as it said here, had been subsequently corrected to be 87.
That's correct.
Now, did he tell you that he knew who the man was that he killed in the Ambassador Hotel?
No, he did not recall.
As to, well, okay, so he didn't know that man's name.
Right.
Okay, continue on.
He went on to relate that there were 3 more homicides at his grandmother's residence, and the rest were at his address at 924 North 25th Street. States the reason there were no homicides from 78 to 84 at that time was because he was too busy in what he was doing.
Now, that date should really be, based upon what you learned, it would have been 78 to 87.
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead. Because he was too busy with what he was doing. Go ahead.
Right. He was in the Army, and after work, he'd go out drinking with the guys. Then he'd come back, go to bed, get up and go to work. He states and this continued through the Army, so he didn't have any time. Then he went to Florida. He was too busy. He was working. Then he arrived in Milwaukee. He was too busy until he discovered the gay bars. See, he did not have any homosexual relationships while in the Army or in Florida. His first experience started after he arrived in Milwaukee and going to the gay bars. States he would not maintain a relationship with the individuals whom he had sex with, and most of them are one-night stands. He stated he enjoyed the company of these individuals, but did not like to see them go. Stated that after the murder started, that being with these other homosexuals gave him pleasure and he preferred them alive. But if they wanted to leave and he couldn't have them alive, he would have them dead. And that's why he would dismember them and save either their skulls or other body parts. States that the victim whose right bicep he had eaten was one that he had cared for, and the individual had big biceps. He stated that he put Crisco on the bicep, softened it up with a meat tenderizer, and then fried it in a skillet. Stated he also saved this individual's heart in a freezer and a portion of an arm from a black male that he had met at a bookstore about 1 year ago. He stated he didn't intend to consume these parts.
Those parts were in the freezer in his apartment at the time he was arrested, correct?
Yes.
Go on, please.
He also states that he had killed the individuals. He had oral and anal sex with the victims after death, but not all of them. He states that when he was in high school, he had fantasized about killing someone, but it did not take effect until 1978, the first time, and then later in, well, it says 1984, which was 1987. We asked him why he just didn't have oral and anal sex with the individuals while they were alive and let them go. And he stated he didn't want to lose them, and that the death and dismemberment led to excitement and gratification. We then asked him if he had ever talked to a psychiatrist, and he stated he talked to a Dr. Crowley, who worked for the social services a couple times, possibly 2 or 3 times in the past month. And he states that Dr. Crowley had prescribed medication for him. He states he didn't get any because he felt he didn't need it. He also states that he was fired from his job on July 7th, 1991, and he had known a week prior that he was going to be fired. And he feels this is a reason why the killings escalated, because he was alone at night and did not want to be alone. He had no company. He felt that these individuals would keep him company. We then asked Mr. Dahmer if he'd be willing to view photos, namely Polaroids, that were recovered in his apartment that he had taken of the victims, to help us identify these victims and to help us place them in the correct order of which he had murdered these victims. And he agreed to do this. This time, Attorney Wendy Patricus arrived with a doctor and our interview ceased.
Now, you asked Mr. Dahmer to view photos The photos that you asked him to review were photos of dead people, were they not? They were,
All but, well, there were some other photographs.
I understand, but there was a bunch of photos taken in his apartment.
Yes.
They were Polaroids.
Yes,
It was clear that the pictures of some of those fellas on the pictures they were in a dead state.
that's correct.
You wanted to have him assist you in helping to identify the people.
Yes,
He didn't know who the people were,
no,
and he wanted to do that.
yes,
As a matter of fact, when he was told that there was an attorney in the picture, he didn't even want an attorney, did he?
that's correct.
He wanted to talk and continue to assist law enforcement in the identification of the persons.
Yes,
By the time an attorney came into the case, he had already confessed these multiple murders, but the identifications weren't known, correct?
that's correct.
So he wanted to continue to do that, and that was his right, and he did that
Yes,
at all times.
yes.
Okay, and then when do we have the next piece of activity with Mr. Dahmer?
On Wednesday, the 24th, we continued to question him after we had seen the attorney in room 407. We'd given him cigarettes, coffee, soda. And we went through the Polaroids, tried to establish an order of the homicides in the way in which they actually occurred. Mr. Dahmer agreed to cooperate with us. And we started with the first homicide that occurred in Milwaukee.
Let me just interrupt as I'm reading what you're saying. Mr. Dahmer said he'd be glad to cooperate with us in any way.
That's correct.
And I just stress that because that's a fact, not?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Say the first homicide that committed in Milwaukee occurred in either November of 84 or November of 85, to the best of his recollection. We subsequently found out that it was November of 1987.
Okay.
He stated he met this victim and they went to the Ambassador Hotel. Again, he described this individual as a white male, 25. Time he stated he was 5'6", 130 pounds, slim build, blonde hair, shoulder length and straight, maybe parted in the middle and clean shaven. Stated he was fair complected and had a smooth skin and possibly wearing jeans. He indicated that they went to the hotel with the individual. They were drinking. He gave him a drink which contained the sleeping pills. He then awoke and the subject was dead next to him and blood was coming from his mouth. He stated he then put the subject in a suitcase, took a cab to his grandmother's house on South 57th Street, where he drained the blood, cut the body up, and used a sledgehammer to break the bones. Stated that he then disposed of the body in plastic bags. He then continued, he indicated that in January of 85 or 86, which was actually January of 88, he met victim number 2 in front of the 219 Club on South 2nd Street. Stated that the victim was waiting for a bus which was heading towards the south side. He described this individual as a Hispanic male, 16 to 18, 6 foot, 150 pounds, slim build, having dark, straight, short hair, clean shaven, possibly wearing a t-shirt and tennis shoes. He stated that when he met this individual and all the victims, he would approach them and ask them if they would like to make some money for posing for him in the nude, viewing videos, and coming for a drink at his residence. He would offer various amounts of money to these individuals. He stated that each individual accepted his offer and would go with him to his residence. He indicated that the second victim went to his grandmother's house on South 57th Street with him by taking a bus. He stated that he subsequently had sex, then gave this individual the sleeping potion, killed him by strangulation, then smashed the bones with a sledgehammer and disposed of the bones. Stated he did not keep anything from this individual, nor had he kept anything from the first victim. Continue, the third victim he met about 2 months later, approximately March of 85 or 86, which again would be March of 88. He stated that he met another Hispanic male in the Phoenix Bar, which is also located in the 200 block of South 2nd Street, near the 219 Club. He related that this individual was a Hispanic male, 19 to 21, 5 feet 8, 130 pounds, slim build, light brown complexion, having straight, short black hair, clean shaven, and having smooth skin. Stated he is wearing a long, knee-length, brownish vinyl coat. He stated he asked this individual to come to his residence to look at videos and to take photos or engage in sex. He stated that this victim did accompany him to his grandmother's house, where he had oral sex on him. He then proceeded to drug this individual so he slept. He subsequently killed him, dismembered the body, and disposed of it. He related that he did not keep any parts from this victim either. The fourth victim, whom he stated he met sometime in 1987, but he is not sure because it could have been his grandmother's house when he was there a second time in 1989. He was not sure of his dates, but he stated he did meet this individual at the Lacage, which is on 2nd and National, and he met him at closing time. On viewing the photo of Anthony Sears, he stated that this is the individual that he believes he met at the Lacage.
Is this the first person that he's able to identify?
Yes.
And that is victim number what?
Victim number 4 in Milwaukee.
Thank you.
He described this victim as a black male, 21 to 22, 5 feet 9, 150 pounds, slim to medium build, light complexion, having short curly hair and a small ponytail in back, which had a rubber band around it. He stated that he was wearing jeans at the time. He stated he met this individual that he identified as Anthony Sears through the photo, and he got one of Mr. Sears' friends to drive him and Mr. Sears in the friend's auto to his grandmother's house. He described the auto as being a large, beat-up, older model, dark blue auto. He indicated that after arriving at the residence, he used the same ploy to get the individual to come with him. He related that when they got there, they engaged in sex. He gave him the drink that put him to sleep and subsequently killed him and dismembered the body. He indicated that this was the first one where he had kept anything of the individuals. He stated that he kept the victim's skull, which he boiled to remove all the skin, and he kept the scalp with a small ponytail because he liked it. He stated he kept the genitals of this person. He stated that at the time of his arrest, these items were in the black metal cabinet. He also stated that to preserve the skull and genitals, he had called the hardware store and asked what would dry out a rabbit skin, and they recommended acetone, which he used to dry out the scalp and genital area. He stated the reason he kept the scalp was because he liked it. He also stated that the skull he painted.
He kept those remains through the entire period of time, and they were recovered.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
The fifth victim, which was 2 months after he moved into his apartment at 924 North 25th Street, he figures was in 1990. He stated that this individual was the first one that he took photos of. We showed him a photo album which contained 15 photos of a black male in various positions, and he identified this individual as a person he met at the 219 Club area and offered him the same line as to come to be photographed, to have a drink and look at dirty videos.
The 15 photos that you're talking about, were they photos of a live or dead person?
They were photos of a dead person.
In various poses?
Yes.
Go ahead.
He indicated that this victim agreed, and he took him to 924 North 25th Street, apartment 213, where he drugged him, subsequently killed him by strangulation, and after removing his clothes, we saw the tattoo of Cash D, the initial D, on his chest and pitchforks going up in the name of Cash. The photographs in the album also depicted this openly. He described this individual as a black male, 22, 5'8" to 5'9", 140 pounds, curly black hair with a slight mustache, and the photos also depicted this. He stated that after Cash D had died, he had oral sex on him.
Did you know the identity of who that gentleman was? At the
At
time,
that time, no, he did not.
continue on, please.
He states that he did keep this individual's skull and painted it and dried it out. The next individual was the sixth victim in Milwaukee. Stated he met him at the Phoenix Bar on 2nd Street. He again approached this individual with the same line as to having to pose for photos and having to view videos and have a drink. He described this individual as a black male, about 24, 6'2", 170 pounds, medium build, dark skin, prematurely bald, with very close cut hair, clean shaven, and he said he used to be with the Milwaukee Ballet. He states that he had oral sex with this individual and then killed him by the same procedure, drugging him until he slept, strangling him, and dismembering him. He states he did not keep anything from this individual. Upon viewing a photograph of a missing person, he identified victim number 6 as being Edward Warren Smith. He states that the photo did not look like the individual he picked up, and states that he did not keep, he stated that the photo did look like the individual he picked up, but he did not keep any of his body parts.
After looking at the photo of Mr. Smith, the one that you showed him, the missing person, he identified him, but he didn't know his name, did he?
No, he did not.
Continue on, please.
Then continued on with victim 7, who he stated he met in front of the bookstore in the 800 block of North 27th Street. Stated this occurred in the summer of 1990, and he described this individual as a black male, 24, 6 foot, 160 pounds, medium build, medium complexion, having chin whiskers, short black hair, and he states he approached this individual with the same line. He had sex with him and then drugged him and killed him by cutting his throat. He states that after taking photos of this individual, he dismembered him, disposed of his body parts, except for his bicep, which he kept in the freezer, and his skull, which he painted after the skin had been removed and it had dried. He also kept the entire skeleton and bleached it out. The next victim, victim number 8, he met at 2nd and Wisconsin by the bank about 2 months after victim number 7. States that this individual was a black male about 25'9", 150 pounds, slim build, medium to dark complexion, having short black hair. He states that they had walked to his residence up Wisconsin Avenue, and he approached him with the same line as he did the others. When he got to his apartment, they drank, they talked, but didn't have any sex because he wasn't his type. He states that he killed him because he had already given this individual the potions, and after doing that, he did not want to have sex with him, and he thought this individual would wake up and be pissed off at him, so he killed him. States he did not keep anything from this individual after dismemberment because he wasn't his type. He continues that he met the 9th victim in February of 1991. And the subject was waiting for a bus by Marquette. States this occurred about 4 months after meeting victim 8. Described this individual as a black male, 18, 6 foot, 140 pounds, slim build, medium complexion, with a 3-inch perm and a thin mustache. States he approached him with the same offer. When the guy agreed to accompany him to his apartment, he subsequently gave him the drinking potion, had oral sex, and then killed him by strangulation. He stated that they used a strap to strangle him this time, and that the subject was wearing an earring. He states he kept the skull of this individual, the hands, and the genitals. On viewing a family photograph which had been submitted by one of the relatives, this individual was identified as Curtis Strotter.
Mr. Dahmer identified that gentleman.
Yes.
Right.
He continued on that he met the 10th victim in March of 1991 on the corner of 27th and Kilbourne. Described him as a black male, 25, 5 feet 9 to 10 inches, 150 pounds, short black hair, medium build, and medium complexion. He stated he went through the same procedure in meeting these individuals and the same offers, and upon getting them to his residence, he subsequently gave them the potion where they drank it. He strangled them and had oral sex on this victim after death. Mr. Dahmer viewed a BFI photo and subsequently identified this individual as Earl Lindsay. He states he believed this was the same individual who was his 10th victim. He stated that he saved this individual's skull. Continued on that he met victim number 11 in front of the 219 bar on 2nd Street around May of 1991. This individual, he stated, was deaf and dumb. States the individual's friends drove him to 23rd and Wells, that they were a white female and a heavyset white male, and they were also deaf mutes. He stated that he communicated with this individual by writing, and he felt this individual could read lips partially. He states he offered this individual $50 to come over to take photos and view videos, but he did not know if he had sex. He states he gave this individual the drinking potion, he passed out, and when he woke up, this individual was dead. He states he continued through the same procedure as to drain the body of blood, dismember it, and dispose of it, and he kept this individual's skull. He then viewed a Wisconsin driver's license with a photo of Tony A. Hughes, described as 6 foot, 150 pounds. And upon viewing this photo, he states that this is the deaf mute that he had met at the bar and took to his house and subsequently killed. Mr. Hughes' ID was found in the victim's apartment. In the suspect's apartment. He stated he went on and met victim 12 in late May in front of the Grand Avenue Mall. States he went through the same procedure of offering money to have photos taken. And he describes this individual as an Oriental male, about 14, but whom he thought was at first 17 or 18. He describes him as 5 feet 5, 120 pounds, slim build, having dark hair. He states that he and this male took the bus back to his residence, and the individual posed for 2 photographs while he was alive. He then gave him the drink mixture which contained the sleeping potion. He states they were watching videos and this individual passed out. He states he then had oral sex with him and then went to the bar to get some beer because he ran out. He states while he was walking back from the bar, which was located on 27th Street just north of Kilbourne, he saw the Oriental male staggering down the street. He states he went up to him and the police stopped him. He states he then told the police that he was a friend of this individual and that he had gotten drunk and done this before. Police escorted him back to his apartment, and he stated he would take care of him because he was his friend. He states he then went into the apartment and subsequently killed this individual in the same way as he killed the others by strangulation. And after this, he had oral sex on the victim. He states he then took more photographs and dismembered the body, keeping the skull. He also states that he had anal sex with his victim after death. After viewing the photographs of the victim that he took, he said this is the same individual that had run down the street and was stopped by the police. A check of our records revealed that this individual was a Conorak Simpson phone, and he had been missing since May 26, 1991. Mr. Dahmer stated that he kept this victim's skull also.
Let me just interrupt for a moment. In regard to this one that you're just talking about, earlier Detective Kennedy told us about a Chinese person. Is that the same?
Yes.
Okay, and it was Mr. Dahmer's statement to you that the person he thought to be 17 or 18.
Yes.
Continue on.
The next victim he met at the Chicago bus station after the gay pride parade on June 30th in Chicago. He described this individual as a black male, 22, 5'8", 140 pounds, medium build, dark complected, having a high top with a fade cut on the left side. It's a hairstyle. He states he met this individual and went through the same procedure to offer him money to pose nude and view videos. He states this individual and himself took the Greyhound back to the city and then took a city vet cab to his residence. He states he usually uses city vet cabs. Stated they were playing with each other, but they had no sex. States he gave him the drink and then he subsequently passed out. He then used the strap to kill him. States he did not have sex with this individual, but he dismembered him. He did dismember him, keep his head, and put it in the freezer. He said the body was put in the 57-gallon barrel that was in his residence. A fingerprint was obtained from this individual and was subsequently identified as possibly being a Donald Montrell. Individual was from Chicago, and a photo was sent from the Chicago Police Department to Milwaukee, which depicted a picture of this individual photographed on May 3rd of 1990. This photo was shown to Mr. Dahmer. He stated it looks like the guy, but he could not be sure. The photo was old. On comparing this photo with the photograph of taken by Mr. Dahmer of Mr. Montrell after Mr. Montrell was dead, they appeared similar, and Mr. Montrell was subsequently identified as the 13th victim. We then continued with the photographs that Mr. Dahmer had taken and the 14th victim. He stated he met him in Chicago at Carol's Gay Bar after the 4th of July, possibly on the 5th or 6th. He stayed at the bar until about 4:30 a.m. and then left with this individual, and he offered him the same deal to come to Milwaukee, view videos, and to pose for him. They took the Greyhound bus back from Chicago and then took a cab to his residence. He described this individual as a Puerto Rican male, 23 to 24, 5'10", 140 pounds, light to medium complected, having short black hair and a thin mustache. Stated this individual was half Puerto Rican and half Jewish. He stated that this individual stayed for 2 days. They had oral sex together on the first day. States that on the second day, the individual wanted to leave, at which time he decided he did not want him to leave. So he gave him the drink with the sleeping potion. And when he fell asleep, states he killed him the same way he did the others, took the photos of him, dismembered him, took more photos, and then kept his head in the freezer. We obtained the name from a missing report from Chicago and a photo that was brought to Milwaukee. And upon viewing this photo, Mr. Dahmer identified this individual, and he was identified as Jeremiah Weinberger. Mr. Dahmer stated that after he had killed him, he put his head in the freezer and put his body in the 57-gallon drum that was in his apartment. He then went on to victim number 15, who he states he met on 27th between State and Kilbourne a week prior to being caught. State this was his second to last victim. He identified this individual as a black male, 24, 5'7", 160, 170 pounds, having short hair, muscular build, and he stated that his ID he carried in his wallet. The check revealed that the individual had been identified as Oliver Lacey and showed his photograph. We showed the photograph to the suspect, and he stated that this in fact is the individual who was his 15th victim and the second last to die. He stated he met him on 27th Street. He asked him where he was going, and the individual stated he was going to his cousin's house. He then went through the same procedure to invite him over to his residence to pose for photos. He stated that this guy was a bodybuilder and a model, and he had agreed to come over with him. He stated he was wearing a white shirt, blue jeans, and some type of leather shoes. States when they arrived at his residence, they removed all their clothes and were doing body rubs. He gave him the drink. The individual fell asleep, which time he proceeded to strangle him, killing him, and then having anal sex after death. He states he put this individual's head in the bottom of the refrigerator in a box, and he kept his heart in the freezer to eat later. He states he did keep his right bicep, which he subsequently fried on the skillet, and ate part of it. He stated it tasted like beef. He stated the reason he kept this individual's identification was because he wanted more pictures than he had taken of him in the various positions that he had placed him in. Continued on, the victim 16, who he stated was his last victim. This subject was identified through an ID card that he had left in Mr. Dahmer's apartment. This individual was identified as Joseph Friedhoff. Mr. Dahmer stated he met him on Wisconsin Avenue near Marquette University, and this individual was waiting for a bus, and he had a six-pack in his arms. He stated he got off the bus, approached them with the same offer as he did with the others, and he agreed to go with him to his apartment. They went to his residence, where he had oral sex on this individual before killing him. States he gave him the potion, and when the individual went to sleep, he strangled him with a strap. He subsequently put his head in the freezer and his body in the 57-gallon barrel in his residence. He went on to state that these are the only homicides that he has committed, and that the only other one that we know about is the one in 1978, which was the one in Bath, Ohio. Mr. Dahmer went on to state he was still willing to cooperate with us, and if we have any more photos of people that are missing, and that we may have identification of them, he will be glad to view these photos and try to make identification of the other unknown victims. As of this time, we had 10 tentative identifications, with some being positive, and possibly 11th, who was victim number 5 with the tattoo of Cash T.
You're still on the 24th of July.
That's correct.
And that was how long of a session?
It was quite a long time.
Cooperative still?
Yes.
Demeanor the same?
Yes.
Any crying?
None.
Any hysterics?
None.
It's just a matter of fact.
Yes.
Continue on and tell us what happened.
While interviewing Mr. Dahmer, we spoke to him whether or not, in regards to the fact that he had knowledge of whether or not these acts that he was committing were right or wrong. This time, Mr. Dahmer stated he was fully aware that the acts he was committing were wrong, and that he feels horrified that he was able to carry out such an offense. He stated that it was obvious he realized that they were wrong because he went to great time and expense to try to cover up his crimes. He stated that he used quite a bit of caution by setting up alarm systems in his apartment, that being on the outer door, the sliding door leading to his hallway, bedroom, and bathroom area, and his bedroom door. He stated that he set up a fake video camera and told other homosexuals that he had brought to his apartment that it would automatically turn on if his door opened up without the alarm being turned off. He stated all this was done in order to keep people from entering his apartment and discovering the evidence of his criminal acts. He stated that he drank excessively to try to forget the nightmare he felt he was living as he remembered the horror of some of the acts he had performed. He stated that he is deeply remorseful now for what he had done and wished that he had never started. He stated that he is not sure why he started committing these offenses and feels that in order to make restitution to the families of those he had killed, he would like to help the police in any way he can in trying to identify the victims.
Now, this conversation took place in the interrogation.
That's correct.
And you were present, Detective Kennedy was present, and Jeffrey Dahmer.
That's correct.
Is this something you do in the normal course of your business of asking people whether or not they think what they did was right or wrong?
That's correct.
Okay, so this was just normal. Nobody told you to go in and get him into that conversation.
No.
You wanted to know how he could have done all these things and what, whether or not he understood that. Were you testing whether or not he was sane or not?
Well, we're trying to get as much information as we can from him.
I understand that, but was a basis for this line of questioning to make a determination as an investigator whether you were dealing with somebody who might have not realized what they were doing to be right or wrong? Or was it just a matter of normal police
It's a
procedure?
matter of our questioning him, right?
Okay. And once he started talking to you about it, did he volunteer how he went about the business of covering it up or trying to cover up his crimes? Or did you ask him? Why did you have the video camera there? And why did you have the alarm system? How did that go?
Well, the camera had been seen in there, and he had told us why he had bought it and that it was fake and where he had bought it and the reason for purchasing these items.
So he told you during the course of that conversation that he was trying very hard not to get caught doing the things he was doing.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when you say that he was deeply remorseful, how did he express that? Was he crying yet?
No, he was not.
Have you ever seen him cry?
No, I did not.
Has he ever changed his demeanor from the time that you first saw him till the last time you saw him in that 60th hour?
Yes.
How did he change?
He became more relaxed with us. I think he accepted us more, became a little more friendlier, not as, at the beginning, he wouldn't look us in the eyes. At the end, he would look at us and communicate and talk with us.
But that was pretty much about the only difference.
Right, his speech was a little more freer. He would smile a little bit more. At the first couple of days, he wasn't smiling.
Then he
Later on,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
later on, he would smile, crack jokes.
When you say he's cracking jokes, tell us about that.
Well, there was an instance when we were transporting him from the county jail to the city jail, to the Criminal Investigation Bureau, and he had not shaved at all. And as we're proceeding through the jail passageway, a female that had been arrested screamed and yelled, "There's Jeffrey Dahmer." And we had mentioned just prior, "Oh, you didn't shave today." And he said, "I didn't have time." And when she screamed, he said, "Well, I guess I should have shaved." And he just started to laugh.
That's about the first time he said something that was other than just reporting facts.
Yes,
First attempt at humor, right?
yes,
No humor connected with anything he did, though.
no,
Be very serious about that.
yes.
Tell us your next contact, please.
Next contact was on Thursday, July 25th.
This is the day after his arrest, second day after his arrest.
That's correct.
Okay, what time of the day was it?
We believe we're notified again by the jail that he wanted to speak with us. I believe it was in the morning.
So it's understood. All of the contacts after the initial contact, he requested your presence.
That's correct.
Is that out of the ordinary?
Well, once he had retained an attorney, we are no longer allowed to talk to an individual unless he requests to speak to us and his attorney agrees.
But in your practice as a police officer, Jeffrey Dahmer was different than most. He was really unloading, was he not?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Go ahead, continue and tell us what happened.
Okay, on Thursday, July 25th, we talked to Jeffrey and he began speaking about his early teenage and high school years in Bath, Ohio. See, as a teenager of 15 or 16, he realized that he was a homosexual. He never had any interest in women, and he had no idea why he was a homosexual. But he distinctly remembers in high school and during his teenage years that he was only attracted to men. See, it was at this time he began to fantasize of killing human beings. He also began picking up animals which were found on the road, which had been killed apparently by other vehicles. He would bring them home to his house, and he would use a knife in order to cut them up, cut them open, and see what was inside of them and what they looked like. Said several of the animals that he had cut up, he would completely strip down the flesh and meaty areas, and then use bleach and various other liquids he found in his household to experiment to see which one would clean the bones the best. It was at this time he found a large dog that had been hit by a car, and he brought this dog home, cut it up, looked at its insides, completely cleaned it, then soaked the bones in a bleach solution, and he eventually planned to reconstruct the bones and mount the skeleton, much of the way a taxidermist would do it. He stated he never got the time to do this, so. During the time he was cutting up animals, he would fantasize what it would be like to cut up human beings. He realized at this early age that his homosexual fantasies and his fantasies of killing and dismembering human beings were interlocked. And he received gratification from these fantasies, and they occurred many times. Stated whenever he had these fantasies of homosexual activity, he also had fantasies of killing and dismembering. He also was on the state that he felt that retrieving the road-killed animals and cutting them up satisfied his urges and his fantasies for killing and dismembering human beings. He went on to state that after leaving Bath, Ohio, to join the armed forces, and when he was stationed in Germany, we asked him why his behavior of cutting up animals and killing them and dismembering human beings did not occur. He stated he believed the reason he did not kill and dismember anymore while he was serving his tour of duty in Germany was because he enjoyed the structure of the Army. During the entire tour of duty, he lived on base and was in a dorm with 3 other men. He states he did not have any homosexual or heterosexual relationships while in Germany or in the Army, and he satisfied his sexual urges through masturbation. He stated that he enjoyed the Army and wished that he would have finished his entire tour of duty. However, his abuse of alcohol made it impossible, and the Army let him go 6 months before his tour of duty was up. We then questioned about the bodies dismembered that were found in Germany, and he denied any knowledge of that. He stated that after he was released from the Army, he was tired of the cold winters that he endured in Ohio and Germany, and he went to Miami, Florida. Stated the entire time that he was in Miami, Florida, he did not engage in any homosexual activity, nor did he kill or dismember anyone down there. Yet he was continually busy trying to make ends meet financially while in Miami, and that's the reason he had no time to engage in any such activity. Stated at one time he was actually living on the beach in Miami. And eventually that's the reason he moved back to the Midwest, because he could not afford it. Stated he moved back to Bath, Ohio for a short while and then moved in with his grandmother in West Dallas. This time he decided to make a concentrated effort to find some direction in his life. He went on to state he felt constantly lonely and empty without direction, and there was no meaning in life for him. His grandmother was a religious woman of the Protestant faith and a regular churchgoer. He talked to him several times about religion and how it could turn his life around. When he first moved to West Dallas, he had continual fantasies about homosexuality. And that, along with the homosexual fantasies, came the urges to dominate, to kill, and dismember other men. He continually fought these urges by going to church with his grandmother, by reading the Bible, and by trying to live his life in an orderly fashion, as he put it, to walk the straight and narrow. He said he constantly had interlocked feelings and fantasies of homosexual behavior, killing, and dismembering, and they finally overcame him as he was finding it more and more impossible to continue with the lifestyle of church-going and right living. He was then questioned regarding some skeleton bones that were found in the file cabinet in his bedroom at his residence. And he stated that this was from victim number 7, the black male that he met in December of 1990 by the bookstore on North 27th Street. This was the victim that he stabbed in the neck.
He said it was the only victim he stabbed.
Yes. Stated that the reason he did this was the reason he stabbed him was because the potion that he had given him of the sleeping pills and alcohol was beginning to wear off, and this individual was rather strong and muscular, and he did not feel that he would be able to strangle him successfully without putting up a fight. So he took the knife and stabbed him once along the jugular vein in order to kill him. Stated that because this individual was the most attractive that he had met up until this time, he decided to clean and boil the entire skeleton in a solution of water and Soilex and save it. He states this is the reason he kept this individual with him as long as possible. The question regarding victim number 10 was tentatively identified as Errol Lindsay. Stated that this is the only victim that he completely took his skin off. He stated that this was done with a very small, very sharp paring knife, and it took him approximately 2 hours to completely take the skin off this victim. He stated he also, while doing this, he left the cartilage, ligaments, and fleshy muscular areas all intact. We talked to him about his personal relationships, and he said he had no close friends, and he is basically a loner. He stated he is a loner by choice. He never had any success in continuing any long-range relationships. He stated he had friends in high school, but never any best friends that he could continually hang around with. He states he likes to be alone. He specifically likes to be alone when he kills people and cuts them up because it makes him more secure and more dominant. At this time, he went on.
I would like you to continue on to what he said when he was younger about cutting up animals, please.
Pardon me?
I'd like you to start with 2 lines down where he stated when he was younger, he started cutting up animals. In other words,
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
He stated that when he was younger, he started cutting up animals. He enjoyed the excitement of cutting them up, and he wished now that he would have just continued to cut up animals. He would have stopped with them and not having moved on to human beings. He felt that he originally only started it for the curiosity.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, take away from just reading the confession as we're approaching 5 o'clock. You have handled how many homicides in your career as a Milwaukee detectives? Investigation? Hundreds? Hundreds. Have you ever had anyone talk to you about their conduct relative to the commission of homicides as fully and as completely and as much as did Jeffrey Dahmer?
Not in the magnitude. In individual homicides, I've had people that have told me everything, but in a case such as this, no one that would continually talk to us.
As an experienced investigator, you had to ask him his motives.
Yes.
You've already alluded to that from time to time in what he has told you. You knew him to be a homosexual based upon what he told you.
That's correct.
Did you know of anything that contradicted that fact?
Nothing.
You knew that the majority, many of his victims were homosexual.
That's correct.
Did you ask him if these were homosexual killings?
Homosexual, I asked him why he picked these people. He said because they accepted his offer.
That's right. He wasn't out to hurt homosexuals, was he?
No, he was not.
Now, you knew that the racial components of some of these victims were black, some Hispanic, some whites.
That's correct.
Did you ask him if these were racially motivated killings?
Yes, I did.
What did he tell you?
He says race, creed, color had nothing to do with it. It was the opportunity and whoever accepted his offer.
Did he also discuss with you the bodies of the people he chose?
Yes, he did.
What did he tell you about that?
Basically, when he would look for people with the same physical stature.
Of what?
Of kind of tall, thin, younger looking, between his mid-teens, late teens, early 20s.
The kind of person he wanted was a person of a certain physique.
That's correct.
May we approach the bench, Your Honor? You to question Jeffrey Dahmer's statement that these killings were for the motives that he said, and they were not racially motivated nor sexual preference motivated.
No reason to question it.
You believed him when he told you that.
That's correct.
You knew of no evidence to the contrary, did you?
None whatsoever at that time.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Till tomorrow.
Okay, we'll break for the evening at this point. It's just about exactly 5 o'clock. We'll reconvene at 8:30 tomorrow morning.
Court's in recess.
All right.